The DARPA Hard tool is an excellent diagnostic for understanding and assessing the visionary potential for your new idea. And it could be that you need to be more visionary, or you need to scale back your thinking in terms of the organizational context your team is in, the financial constraints you're operating with, as well as how you might even stage a series of visions as you think about what you're trying to do next for future impact. Now, DARPA Hard comes from an existing term. DARPA is a US government agency. They're part of the Department of Defense, and they were formed back in 1958 in response to Sputnik. So the Russians surprised the Americans with a satellite in space, and the US said, we're never going to be surprised again. They've established a DARPA, and over the last 50-some years, DARPA has worked with a very strong sense of high-risk, high-reward research, and particularly funding and accelerating the invention of major big visions, radical innovations such as the internet, GPS, ultrasound, aircraft stealth technology, all of which exist outside the military sphere, applications that we use all around the world and that have even generated and led to multiple new industries. So these are big ideas that have big impact. So drawing from this concept, drawing from DARPA, they've created a concept called DARPA Hard. And this is their shorthand for any type of idea that is so challenging that only DARPA would take it on, that it was hard enough for them to do that it would constitute the type of vision that they were seeking to invest in. In this case, this can be characterized by 4 different related dimensions. So here we have far-reaching, and this relates to a vision that is truly ahead of its time. And you can see here a very simple spectrum, and you're going to have a scale of 7 here to say we've got no change at one end, and of course major change at the top of the scale, where you have an entire paradigm shift. If you can remember the first time you picked up a touchscreen phone and it wasn't a dial pad, how easy was it to go back to using an old type of phone, a model of interaction? Your mind has been changed. You were introduced to a new way of thinking. In addition to far-reaching, you've got technically challenging. Now, sometimes this means that a new technology needs to be created because none exists down here, and you're looking to do a major change in development at this end. But at the same time, this could be an integration challenge. And so there's a technical implementation that's not technology per se, but it's the complexity involved by bringing multiple different pieces together. And then, of course, there's a corresponding scale here. Now, the third dimension is multidisciplinary. Let me see if I can squeeze that in over here. So multidisciplinary is important to visions because it needs to be more than just the idea of one person. You're bringing different groups of people together. So at the bottom end of the scale, it's really one class of knowledge, kind of one discipline, one field of study, versus, of course, here you would say there's multiple. And then the last dimension is arguably the most important, which is if you're doing a vision for innovation, you have to be able to deliver it. It has to be actionable. And so at the bottom, this simply means, oh no, it's another meeting again. We need to have more clarity, more discussion, and at the very top, you're moving forward. You know, it's quick action, and you understand what to do next to move forward. It's like a recipe for making a sandwich. You can put it together very quickly. You need minimal instructions. So as you look at these different scales, then you can say, here is where our idea might score along this. And if you are managing a portfolio of multiple projects, multiple products, ideas, you could even compare and say, is there a band that they all sit together? Do we have some outliers? And then that should raise the discussion of implications. Should we have these outliers? Do we need more like that? Is this where we want to sit? Why is this our comfort zone? If I was to take an easy example, we could say, all right, if we look at man on the moon, right? The first time this announcement was made, announced by President John F. Kennedy in the US, but it represented a very audacious goal. and ties in, of course, to the history of DARPA, because when Sputnik happened, the U.S. Raced to figure out what they could do to really up their efforts and raise the bar for what they were trying to do in science and technology, but also to make sure that they were ahead in the space race. And so the man on the moon was pretty high. It wasn't as far-reaching because already we had examples and precedents, such as Sputnik, out in development. But technically challenging? Oh, very much so. And you might, score it around here. And in this case, you could do a fast survey of your team members and say, generally our group agrees here. You could survey a group of experts and say, okay, here's the consensus. It's not important to have these hard-coded, but to have the enlightened and informed discussion to say, here's where we think we sit as a 5. Because a 5 for you may actually be a 3 for another group. So as you think about the man on the moon and the effort that entailed in terms of multidisciplinary collaboration, well, pretty high. And in fact, this initiative actually spurred and created an entirely new field of aerospace engineering that hadn't existed before. And then in terms of actionable, well, still a government initiative, but the U.S. established a new agency called NASA. And this organization helped to mobilize efforts across the country and provide a focal point for different efforts. And so you can see here, here's how, man on the moon scored. And you could easily do multiple types of these scores. The reason is to then understand what you can do next to say, oh, well, do we need to take that up? Or if this is low action and a lot of technical, well, maybe we need to bring that down so that we can deliver faster. And you're looking to find that balance across the 4 dimensions of far-reaching, technically challenging, multidisciplinary, and actionable as part of the DARPA Hard Test.